GM, everybody. Welcome to what's going to be another great DevNTell. So, if you didn't know, DevNTell is a 30-minute podcast for people who are passionate about Web3 and have been building really cool products. So, whether you are a established Web3 company or weekend hacker or anything in between, this is your platform to demonstrate your product to the Web3 community. And today, I'm ecstatic to welcome DDOG Patrick Skinner, who will be giving us an overview of AO. If you didn't know, AO is a decentralized hyperparallel virtual computer built on Arweave. So if you stick around for today's show, you'll learn what AO is, what you can build with it, why you should build with it, and how to get started. All right, let's get going. GM, welcome, Pat. Love to have you on the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Man. Good, man.
Yeah.
Good. You?
Good. You know, it's been too long since you and I have talked or anything like that. You know, I feel like I kind of missed you during hockey season. We didn't get to talk too much then, but yeah, man, I've been so busy. It's hard for me to pop back into the DAO all the time, but I'm here, and yeah, I'm excited.
Excellent. Yeah, man. That's just how it goes and Web3 sometimes. You sometimes don't even get the time to chat with your homies about hockey.
I know,
right? But we'll take whatever we can get from you. So welcome to the show. I'm ecstatic to have you on, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk AO to us. But before we get into that, and if folks aren't familiar with you and your background story, perhaps would you like to enlighten the crowd here about who Patrick Skinner is? Yes.
Yeah. So my background is obviously, for those that may already know, a bit unconventional in the Web3 or even tech space. I came from a background where I worked in, the U.S. military. I was a U.S. paratrooper medic and worked in special operations a little bit, and specialized in mass casualty coordination as well. And during that time, I actually was a mass casualty coordinator for the earthquake in Haiti back in 2010. The first quake hit like in early January, and so me and my unit we responded to the earthquake on like a humanitarian mission called Operation Unified Response. And it was then that, like, as I was doing a lot of the mass casualty coordination, and I was doing everything from like surgeries and like search and rescue and all kinds of craziness. We actually had this boy named Arresto. We found him in the rubble, and he's roughly about 3 or 4 years old. Lost both of his parents during the earthquake, and we ended up having to amputate his right arm and do over 100 stitches on his head. It was crazy. Well, he kind of became like our adopted son in this whole craziness, and for the whole platoon. So we all took care of him. We were all like, even though like the unit was rationing, we were like rationing our own food just to be able to feed him and everything too. So like we took great care of him, and I used to go and take care of his surgical wounds and everything on a regular basis. And I would put my, military cap on him every time because he loved it. And one time after finishing, I left and realized, oh man, I left my cap. Went back and he was just gone. Didn't realize what was going on. And, I turned around, realized some humanitarian guy, or at least a guy in a humanitarian vest kind of thing, was just like speed walking with him away kind of thing. And I was like, man, okay, what's going on? So I, run over, get him. And this guy is claiming, oh yeah. And, we're taking all the kids from the hospital area and moving them to another location so that we can, take care of them in a better setting, better location. And at that time, especially when all the chaos is going on and you've got thousands of patients to take care of and you've got a handful of supplies and a handful of personnel, you're just trying to take anybody that will be willing to help. And so, you assume they're there for good intentions, and you're like, hey, totally understand, but you do got to get, verification from our U.S. Army Command. It's just back there. All you have to do, give them your ID, that kind of stuff, sign some paperwork, and, no big deal. We'll get you in here and in the pipeline so you can help us out. And I was like, and Arresto, he's got to stay here because, I'm still taking care of his wounds. He gave me this like really awkward smile and gave me back Arresto. And instead of like going this way, he went that way out of the hospital. And I was like, that's weird. seemed really awkward, and he kind of seemed very nervous at that time. Lo and behold, something was off. So I told U.S. Army Command, I was like, hey, something just didn't seem right about this conversation. Let's have an eye out for this kind of interaction. Make sure none of the kids are being taken out of the hospital area without some sort of approval. And then, okay, cool. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he and like 3 other Americans, mind you, were caught at the Dominican Republic border with about a connex of like 40 kids, like basically traffic them out of Haiti. And so at that point, I was like, man, that's I can't believe that could have been a resto at that point. And that was when I was introduced to human trafficking. So I left the military because I tried to get into like working into human trafficking in the U.S. military. Had a really difficult time doing that, but I did get some offers in the private sector. So I started working, for basically teaching combat medicine and stuff like that, but also like working with human trafficking interdiction teams in like Northern Africa, Middle East, and stuff like that for a little bit. And that's when I realized where the money was coming from, as far as like, who was doing all the human trafficking and everything. And also like how funded they were, how well funded they were. And I realized that number one source of income for human trafficking actually is, surprisingly, counterfeit goods. A lot of people don't realize that. And when I say counterfeit goods, people think of like Gucci bags and, fake Rolexes and stuff like that. That is part of it, but it's really like fake pharmaceuticals, fake electronics, fake car parts, like all kinds of craziness. And the money is just, wow, it's nuts. It's massive amounts. And I told myself at that time, if I could build something that could like cut off the revenue source for human trafficking, I would definitely do it. And so roughly about 2014, my wife and I were like, if we want to have kids, this is not a great career for you to be in. So we're going to do it. I remember I literally like Google, what's the safest thing I can do while still making like 100,000 plus or something like that. And of course, software engineering is like on the top of the list. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's what I'm going to get into. So I started learning software engineering right about 2015, 2016. Had a couple different startups and stuff like that. But then, it was like 2017, 2018. I saw an article about how NFTs could be used to authenticate physical products. And I didn't know what an NFT was at that time. So I was just learning exactly what it was. And I'm kind of like dabbling a little bit in like the Web3 space until roughly about I think it was late 2020. That's when I fully aped in at that point. I was like, okay, this is when I'm going to do this. And so like I was on this show, what was that, 2 years ago for my previous startup for Agami. And Agami was intended as a proof of authenticity for physical products. And it's also when I discovered Arweave, which is really, really interesting too, because I was building with Arweave on Agami. I needed a way to have some sort of proof, and like permanent proof, something that couldn't be manipulated, something that wasn't going to suddenly disappear for any reason whatsoever on a physical product. Because let's say you can authenticate with an NFT or something, some sort of like UDL or something like that. We'll get into that a little bit later with a physical product. But the problem is like let's say that product outlasts you and that company. Let's say that could be several things. It could be certain car parts. It could be a Rolex. It could be like, vintage goods of some sort you're trying to authenticate. And, if nobody's home to keep the lights on and somebody's trying to scan an NFC chip or something like that, then, that NFC chip isn't any good anymore. Nobody, if you're using some sort of centralized system and that profile that you're trying to use isn't, readily available anymore, then what's the point of authenticating that product anymore? And as a matter of fact, in my opinion, if you do that and that one of the product's features being able to authenticate it somehow with an NFC chip, as soon as that link is bad, I think it actually devalues that product, because now a particular feature of that product no longer works. And I think that's a huge problem. So, that's when I started building with Arweave, and that was late 2020. That's when I really started kind of building at that time. And I think it was about mid 2021, maybe end of 2021 is when we had that big like NFT dip, kind of the market drop and everything. And I was trying to get some funding and everything, got a little bit of funding, and but then things just kind of went really sour after that, and I just couldn't find anything. So I was like, all right, let's back this up a little bit. I'm still kind of new to the Web3 space, but so I still have a lot to learn. And at that point, I joined Developer DAO, but I wasn't super active. And that's when I think it was Billy put together that hackathon for Streamer, and I ended up competing in that hackathon, and I won that hackathon, and which was huge surprise to me. But that's when I realized, okay, I love engineering pretty much in any aspect and in any angle of Web3, because even that project was kind of like a feel good project as well. It's much more of like a real world benefit, and so the other aspect I learned too was, because obviously you have to do a lot of writing and the documentation for your hackathon project, and you have to do a video and everything. Kind of fell in love with that process too. So I was like, I loved being an educator in medicine, and why can't I be a good educator in technology as well? And so that's when I discovered that Billy started working as a DevRel. I believe it was for API 3 at that point. Yeah, and he still works for API 3. And now I was like, this is kind of what I want to do. So I joined DevRel Uni soon after, and I was actually the first cohort of DevRel Uni. Shout out to DevRel Uni, by the way, an amazing program. If anybody wants to become a DevRel, highly recommend jumping into a cohort with them. It's an amazing experience, amazing instructors. You got people like Natter and Patrick Collins is in the last cohort and everything as well as an educator. Steph Rapija, like a lot of like DD members and stuff like that are mentors in that course, and I'm a big fan of it. So if you want to be a DevRel, head over there. After DevRel Uni, kind of dabbled into like a DevRel-esque role inside Developer DAO. Worked a little bit at Intuition and then Pocket Network, and now early this year, in January, I got offered a role as a lead DevRel for Arweave and Ford Research. So that's kind of how I got here. Sorry, it's kind of long-winded, but yeah, it's a kind of a crazy route and a little bit different than what you would typically get in the typical CS degree kind of thing.
No, man, that was beautiful. I loved how you basically segued each part of the story into each other. That's fantastic, and I think that whole intro could be a podcast in itself. Maybe we get into that
one day.
But one day, that's right. But yeah, man, that's amazing, and I love the story, and I even learned some things I didn't know as you were telling that. So really awesome to see where you landed, and just more evidence of hard work can get you anywhere you want to go. So definitely very ecstatic to see you where you're at now. And I guess in the interest of time, let's get into today's topic of AO and who you work for now. So if you want, you can.
Right? Yeah.
That's right. Okay. And folks, as Patrick is going through his slides and presentation, please feel free to post any questions you may have, and we will get those answers for you as we go.
Here we go. Let's see if this hit the play button kind of thing here. Oh, wait. It's doing something weird here. Sorry.
It's all good.
And there we go. And here we are.
Yep. You're good.
All right. You can see the slideshow now, right?
Yep.
Okay. So let's. There we go. All right. So this is doing some weird stuff. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can make this go backwards. Come out of this. Here we go. All right. Okay, cool. And I think it's up, down button should work. All right. So first, and foremost, the biggest thing that I kind of want to break down is like, what are we going to freaking talk about? And the big things that we're going to obviously talk about is like, we're going to be talking about AO, but I do want to do a real quick refresher on like Arweave, because not a lot of people are always familiar with Arweave in general. We're also going to talk about like what's being built, how do you start, and then just overall opportunities and everything that's going to be coming up. So my desired outcome in this case is just to make everybody bullish on Arweave and AO, because I'm definitely bullish. I know I sound biased and everything, but I've been a big fan of Arweave for a very, very long time. But AO is just honestly, it's just, I feel like has been dramatically, catapulted Arweave's capabilities as an ecosystem. So, what the fuck is Arweave? Let's just put it that way. All right. So Arweave, for those that don't know, it's just known as the storage blockchain. A lot of NFT projects have relied on Arweave for storage of metadata or even images. I'm sure everybody has seen somewhere where like an NFT project suddenly has all these dead images, and yeah, that's a real pain in the ass. And that doesn't happen with Arweave, and the reason why it doesn't happen is because of how nodes and data providers are incentivized on Arweave to make sure that that data is available for a minimum of 200 years. That's a wild notion to think of like a minimum of 200 years, but it's true. The incentive program is completely based to make sure that those incentives are very, very long lasting. So it's because of this that not only NFT projects store data. We're talking about like financial institutions. We're talking about all kinds of different verticals that use Arweave for storage of some sort. And now, before there was AO, what kind of data were you able to store? Well, a lot of it was like kind of back-end data. You can use SQL or no SQL databases built within Arweave. And so like WeaveDB is a good example of one of those. And so you can have your database stored, permanently. So that's a back end side. Now the front end side is you can actually have your static and somewhat dynamic front ends deployed on Arweave as well. What that means is like I can actually build out like a static page, and I can actually deploy that whole page on there. And that means I do not have to pay monthly fees. I don't have to pay, for hosting provider or anything like that. I don't have to pay for domain services, especially with like services like RNS now. Which is the Arweave naming service provided by the same team that actually provides Rdrive, which is kind of like a permanent version of like Google Cloud or Google Drive or even Dropbox, anything like that. Super intuitive. I think Rdrive is one of the best Web 2 friendly applications in Web 3 in existence, period. Like I think they've done bar none, probably the best UI example of what Web 3 should be as far as like a user interface and user experience. But yeah, so that's pretty much Arweave. You had this like really great front end side and you had this great back end side, but there were some things that were lacking. So transactions can sometimes be slow. That communication layer between the front end and the back end can be slow sometimes too. And so then, one of the major fixes to that was, the release of AO. So what the fuck is AO? AO is, it stands for actor oriented, which is based on actor oriented modeling. And it's the hyperparallel computer, which is basically a decentralized virtual computer that isn't owned by anybody. You don't have any crazy DAO or anything like that is doing some sort of voting mechanisms or anything, saying who can do what on AO or anything like that. The consensus models and the voting models and everything on it are very, very light. This is what makes AO super duper fast as a virtual computer. So now those things that were lacking, like slow transactions, we're talking about, a difficulty in the communication layer from front end to back end, stuff like that. That is completely blown away and gone as issues when it comes to using AO. So let's just kind of jump into some of the things that AO is now kind of unlocked. DeFi, on-chain games, on-chain AI, decentralized middleware, decentralized data streaming, and autonomous agents. So, okay, this is so cool. And this is why I love working with the entire Arweave ecosystem. And this is where I feel like this is where I've kind of found my home. Long before AO was even a thing, I came to Arweave specifically for the technology, but I stayed because of the community. And why do I say that? Because DeFi didn't exist. And you would think yourself, well, if DeFi didn't exist, then why the hell are you there, kind of thing? Because the DeFi is kind of the big unlock of Web3. Well, that's not what I came to Web3 to build. You have to remember, in my backstory, I came to build, authentication for physical products to kind of try to kill the whole idea of counterfeit, products, counterfeit manufacturing, counterfeit product trafficking, and things like that. So I didn't have really like a DeFi, bone in my body at that time, because it wasn't really necessarily important to me. And so it wasn't a big feature of Arweave as well. And so why does that make me bullish on Arweave long before AO was even a thing? Was that if you came to Arweave and you stayed to build and you became a team member or anything like that in the Arweave ecosystem, you believed more in the mission than you did believe in like just trying to make a quick buck kind of thing. And let's be real. A lot of people come to places like Ethereum and Solana and stuff like that because they want to make a quick buck. And so it makes it sometimes kind of hard to see, okay, do I want to work with this guy? What are their intentions? Are they here to just make some quick cash, or are they really here to, really solve a genuine problem? And for me, DeFi, it muddles the water a little bit. And so for me, when I was working with everybody in the Arweave ecosystem, I honestly just fell in love with the overall community because everybody was so mission oriented. And so I loved that about the Arweave ecosystem. And so now AO has really unlocked DeFi. Now, is that a bad thing? No, because everybody that was here before is still very mission driven, very mission oriented. So it's very easy to see who was here before that, and then, and who has really came to kind of like become part of that original team or that original community. And so I think Arweave is one of the best places to network and become part of a community that is really driven towards a genuine mission and not just, here to make a quick buck. So, that's my spiel on the DeFi side. But DeFi is a huge unlock now. Transactions are significantly faster, especially, now we have like wrapped AR versus AR, and, there's various different tokens that are available now. Tokens are like, you can deploy a token extremely easily in AO as well. On-chain games. On-chain games is cool because in AO, it's not just like, a lot of people say, oh, Web3 games, this and that. Most of the Web3 games out there are really about Web 2.2. Let's be real, because it's really just like the currency and the, maybe some like items in the game or like NFTs or something like that. But the overall backbone of the game, the graphics and all that stuff, the actual play, it's all, it's all, centralized and it's not on chain. Now, so to me, that's like, okay, that's really just about Web 2.2. And so with AO, everything is on chain. I'm talking up, down, left, right is on chain. And a lot of people immediately ask the question like, why would you want up, down, left, right on chain? Well, it's interesting because I'll break it down a little bit, and we'll have an announcement about a feature called Rfleet pretty soon, which actually creates a layer for temporary storage, which really scales modularity and everything inside of the Arweave ecosystem. So parts of the game, you can actually run sections of the game that could be up, down, left, right, and things like that. The actual gameplay, in the Rfleet layer, and then you can take the results of that game and store it on chain, which is pretty freaking awesome. On-chain AI, man, this is such a cool feature too, and it is growing rapidly. We have so many different teams and features and stuff like that building on-chain AI, and people, I think, are sleeping on what is truly capable with on-chain AI in the Arweave ecosystem. We already have Llama 3 fully operational inside of AO, and we even have actual games where the NPCs are ran by that LLM, which is so freaking cool. And so, yeah, so I mean, you can the fact that you can have NPCs controlled by AI and the entire game itself is on chain and everything as well as what is controlling those NPCs, the LLMs and everything as well. It's super impressive to me. Decentralized middleware. This is something I'm pretty excited about because obviously the big thing that people kind of griped about was the static front end communication layer to the data backend inside of Arweave, and slow transactions or a slow communication. It's gone now, and that's because of that decentralized middleware feature that AO kind of unlocks. And then decentralized data streaming. We're very, very close now. We even have a few bounties out there, I believe, where if anybody wants to build decentralized data streaming, and when I say data streaming, I mean all the way up to like video streaming, audio streaming, stuff like that. We actually have bounties that are available to people to be able to start building with decentralized data streaming inside of AO. And then autonomous agents. Last but not least, this is so cool. And if and when we have time, I'll actually put together a really quick autonomous agent for everybody, where it will basically get a price feed for you as well as a news feed. And then, later on in your own time, you can actually build that so that it feeds that into the on-chain LLM. What happened here? Hopefully, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I had a little bit of weird actions going on, but we're good. But yeah, so like you can basically build these autonomous AI agents on chain where they can get the price feed, they can get the news feed that into LLM. That LLM can decide, okay, you should buy or you should hold or you should sell. And then, it'll spit that information back into that autonomous agent, and then it will basically make those transactions for you. And then, so there's all kinds of different things you could do. The NPCs I mentioned previously with on-chain games, those are autonomous agents in their own rights as well. So there's all kinds of unlocks. Next, okay, this eco overview for AO is it's dated. I actually think it's like 3 times as big now. But I mean, we have everything from like new infrastructure layers. We have, huge unlock for block explorers. We have new bridges and investment, a lot of new investment opportunities, some big wallet unlocks. I'll give a couple hints to that in a little bit. AI, you can see like data OS, point to AI, outcome. Yeah, I think that section alone, I think is like 4 times bigger now. The communities are much, much bigger now. Weavers is a great organization that just recently started. I got to meet with a lot of PermaDAO people in the Chinese community. Man, PermaDAO is a great community. So if you are part of the Chinese community, I highly recommend hitting them up, as well as Arweave Oasis, an amazing community as well in the Chinese community. Only Arweave does some of the best ecosystem updates for Arweave and AO, which is ran by Longview Labs. Highly recommend following them. It's at Only Arweave on X. DeFi, we got PermaSwap, RSwap. Astro is really cool because they're the first provider of a stablecoin in the Arweave ecosystem. Really freaking cool. Bark, Harvest, and Dexy are all in there. A lot of new developer tooling, lots of social because of those fast transactions and everything. Now we've completely unlocked social there. The gaming, oh man, effect was just kind of the beginning of things. But now we have like Permaverse, we have AO Games, we have Llama Land, Reality Protocol. I mean, so many things have completely just been unlocked by AO, and it's happened in such a short amount of time. We have to remember, guys, that the ecosystem is roughly 3 times bigger than this. And on top of that, which is mind-boggling to me, it's like, we've only been around for about 7-8 months at this point. We released in February 28th, and we're still in testnet, and yet we've just got a flood of these teams and developers and engineers and even business people, investors, stuff like that, just really pouring into this because this has been such a big unlock to the Arweave ecosystem. I like to show this slide because this is basically the outcome of a 3-day hackathon for Arweave India, and they did a 3-day hackathon, like hacker house thing, and this was the outcome of it. And what they built in 3 days is really freaking cool. And I like to show this slide because it also shows how fast and easy it is to build with Arweave and AO as well. So we've got SAM, which is smart contract auditing, Loom interactive 3D worlds on AO. I mean, imagine building something like that in 3 days. That's freaking cool. Data ownership and content monetization, USDX, which is a fractionally algorithmic stablecoin as well. RKey, an MPC-based wallet on Arweave. AO Vest, that team I've actually been talking to recently, really cool. Forever AI, decentralized and on-chain AI inference platform. That's, I mean, the fact that people were able to build something like this in a matter of 3 days is super impressive. And then Fundars, permissionless ecosystem for funding platform. Really cool stuff to be put together in only 3 days. I mean, I'm very impressed. I do have to shill the Arweave India community. Very impressed by that community as well as the engineers there. I'm a big fan of everybody that is part of running Arweave India. I'm big fan of Ropats. He's another developer DAO member as well. He's a big member of Arweave India as well, and they've put together some really cool stuff. There's one project I have to mention that Ropats was part of. Was they put together a physical camera. This is so cool. They put together a physical camera that when you take a picture of this with this physical camera, it stores the image immediately on Arweave. And that's such a, I mean, to be honest, like it's such a, it's a concept thing. Let's be real. They're not looking to mass produce this product or anything, but it's such an interesting thing of like what is truly capable inside of Arweave and AO now. It's so cool. So then for some reason, I can't see the, questions. Are there any questions? Do you want to read any of those for me?
Basically, everyone's giving you fire and rocket emojis and amazing, cool. which I agree.
Cool. All right. So why is it easy? All right. So yes, you could build with several different languages and stuff like that, but you really only need to know JavaScript, TypeScript, and Lua. And in this case, TypeScript isn't even like a hard requirement. You could do anything with JavaScript. Lua is a ridiculously easy language to learn. As a matter of fact, if you type in Lua tutorials, you're mostly going to see like tutorials for like Roblox and stuff like that, because it's a language that is often used for like doing game mods and stuff like that for like Roblox and like Minecraft and different things like that. And they're targeting anywhere from as low as like 8-year-olds to as high as, like maybe 15-year-olds or something like that. And so, I mean, Lua is an extremely easy language to learn. So if you're unfamiliar with Lua, instead of writing out these, async functions or, sync functions or anything like that, then what you end up actually writing is these handlers. And so these handlers do what's called message passing. And this message passing is basically what handles all the functionality within, either the middleware or the backend functionality of any application that or autonomous agent or anything like that. And so basically these handlers are either waiting to receive a specific message or a tag of a message. It takes in the data from that message, and then, based on the results of, that tag or that message data, it will execute a specific function for you. It is very easy to learn. As a matter of fact, if you do want to learn it, I'll show you guys a link to the cookbook for AO cookbook pretty soon. We have 2 really cool tutorials. One's called the begin tutorial. a lot of fun to play with because I built out a couple autonomous agents in there based off of the movie The Matrix. So you got Morpheus and you got Trinity in there, and they basically set up as you're going through the tutorial, you're within AOS, the operating system, and you basically get to interact with these characters, and they give you specific challenges, and those challenges basically teach you how to build within AOS and AO and everything. So yeah, an amazing and fun learning experience if you ever want to jump into the cookbook, learn a little bit about Lua, learn a little bit about programming with AOS. So. And then a lot of people kind of say, well, okay, this seems too easy. There's no Rust, there's no Solidity. Why, are you just foregoing consensus altogether? Well, no, not at all. And so what's really interesting too is like consensus very much in many blockchains, especially Ethereum, is the main reason why Ethereum can run slow because of how consensus is managed. And this happens in many different blockchains. Well, how we do consensus, specifically on AO, is despite its significant computation capacities, AO is able to maintain traditional smart contract execution capabilities while using holographic state mechanism. And what that means is instead of coming to a consensus about a state of computation itself, AO focuses on ensuring that the logs of interactions are written to and available on Arweave. So what does that mean with like logs? So if I have a process, which is kind of the core component of like what you're going to be building with in AO and AOS, I spin up this process and I'm executing specific handlers or actions or things like that with this process. Well, consensus is reached by basically checking the logs of that process. And it's significantly faster to do that rather than trying to check the computation itself. It's checking logs for that process and seeing what, the history of the message passing and message receiving are like on that specific process. And then it'll do the same thing on the process that it's interacting with as well. So this allows TPS to be extremely high, within in AO, and allows for a lot of the interactions within, let's say, the games and stuff like that to happen very, very, very quickly. So
just
go ahead.
a question on it real quick. What is exactly being verified in the logs? Is it basically a verification of the chain of computation that went down, and like a quick verification of that, or maybe if you want to deep dive a little bit on that.
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes. It will check the logs as far as like what kind of data is being passed, what kind of actions are being executed, the size of data that's being the passed, and everything as well. Because you have to remember everything is being ran in parallel, which allows this kind of like horizontal scalability, which in theory, you're based on how it's built, it's with the horizontal scaling, it's infinitely scalable in theory. And so that being said, it is important to be able to verify, computation size and everything as well during the holographic state mechanism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totes. And I guess that kind of lends itself to AO being able to support non-deterministic outputs like AI inference, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So instead of having another set of nodes recompute the same thing and maybe get a different set of results, you're just verifying that the computation basically occurred in the transactional logs.
Yes, 100%. Okay. Yeah, and
Gotcha.
and of course, there is kind of like a layer of trust here, where like obviously, if a process has been running computation for X amount of time and it has a long series of basically trusted transactions, it allows for the trust and the computation size and everything, allows for that transaction to happen faster. And so that's also an important mechanism of the holographic state mechanism as well. To get started, for those that want to jump in and play with this or anything like that, the barrier of entry is super low. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend, even if you're not an engineer, or you're very new to engineering or anything like that, I highly recommend anybody that is even curious to see how easy, jumping into something like this is, head over to the cookbook at cookbook_ao.arweave.dev and go through those tutorials, because the tutorials are very well laid out, and it's very, very easy to get into. And once you're done with those tutorials, jump over to quests. We have a quest page where in those quests, there's some opportunity to earn some wrapped AR and things like that as well. And so really, really cool stuff. And so I highly recommend, if anybody wants to, learn and jump into this. I also say that Arweave, in my opinion, is probably, if not, one of the easiest, if not the easiest place to go from like a Web 2 engineer to a Web 3 engineer, because you're not required to learn really, really complicated languages like Solidity or Rust or anything like that. Because those languages are obviously, other than Rust really, but Solidity is very, very, exclusive to contract writing and everything like that inside of Web3. Whereas, with Lua, JavaScript, and TypeScript, you pretty much probably already have those skills already coming from Web 2 and going into Web 3. So this, I think anybody that is, let's say, they're Web 2 engineers and they're Web 3 curious, this is a great place to start because of how easy it is to get in and just start building things. We have some really cool tutorials, video tutorials, and all kinds of stuff. And so I highly recommend, jumping into the cookbook. And then the next, next part, which I highly recommend as well, is making sure that you kind of follow these accounts on X. And it's not just like oh, hey, there's a call to action so I get more followers or anything. No, like we do really regular ecosystem updates. We do online hackathons. The Weavers org is an online community that does some really great bounties, which they call raids. And it's this time period where people can kind of execute specific or execute certain actions to be able to complete these raid quests kind of thing. And, you can earn some wrapped AR and things like that, or just R token in general. And so I definitely, recommend following Weavers org. AO the Computer, I haven't done one in a little bit because I was traveling for 3 weeks in Asia, doing workshops and everything like that. But we do a show called the Testnet Show. And the Testnet Show is usually like 1 or 2 videos a week where we just talk about ecosystem updates. We talk about opportunities. We talk about live events, online events, offline events. We talk about, new bounties. We talk about all kinds of testnet updates, different projects that are either building new stuff, or we even talk about like who's hiring and all kinds of stuff. So, highly recommend following the AO the Computer if you're really, really interested in like getting into the Arweave ecosystem. AO the Computer is a great place to start because a lot of people follow there. A lot of people get their ecosystem updates, and it's a really easy way to get the relevant information and most up-to-date information. So you can, be able to make sure that you're joining those live events or those online, offline events and things like that. The next part, kind of a bit of a plug for some of the ecosystem communities that I've been really proud to work with is like Arweave Oasis. I spent 3 weeks doing workshops in 7 different cities, and with Jerry from Arweave Oasis. He put together some really amazing offline events all through China, Japan, Taiwan, and pretty soon I'll actually be with him in Singapore, and then immediately after Singapore, little teaser. Don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but we might be in Malaysia immediately after Singapore. So a little bit of alpha there, and highly recommend if you're anywhere in Asia, highly recommend following Arweave Oasis. Arweave India, I already shilled them pretty hard earlier, but if you want to be in a community of some really amazing developers, go head over to Arweave India, a great community. Arweave Japan and Arweave Philippines are very, very new, but they're growing very quickly. And I highly recommend if you're in Japan or if you're in the Philippines, Go follow them. They've had some really great offline events. I think Arweave Japan has an offline event and online event this weekend, starting this weekend, I think. And so head over there and you can see some of their announcements. Arweave Philippines just had a hackathon not too long ago. Arweave Africa is constantly doing things. So, highly recommend if you're in those geographic locations, head over to those accounts and definitely give them a follow. Aside from that, that's pretty much the end of my presentation here. So let me go ahead and just end the share. And I know we only have maybe 15 minutes left, but a couple things I do want to hit on is if you are going to Token 2049, we do have an event called Arweave Asia. It's on the 19th. I think it starts at 1:30, something like that. So I don't have an active link for the Luma here, but I'll make sure to post a link and maybe develop a DAO account, and the DevNTell account could probably share it. It's for there's a Luma link for it. It's going to be a massive event. I mean, I think we're estimating 80 to 100 people, something like that, are supposed to be there. Got a lot of signups, stuff like that. Some really, really great speakers. I don't want to give away who the speakers are yet. But I'm super excited. A couple things I'll show really quick. Tate from Community Labs, he just kind of hinted at the very first mobile wallet for Arweave. And I don't know if we're going to hear about that at the event, or if we might hear about some other things. Because Community Labs has been pumping out some really great developer tooling, some user tools and user platforms, stuff like that. Huge fan of what Community Labs has been doing. Tate has been doing some crazy stuff. Not too long ago, they just held a incubator for $30 million incubator, which is insane. And it's all dedicated to people building with AO, and some amazing projects came out of that incubator. So back to the Singapore part. If you are going to Token 2049, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on, or sign up for the Luma link, anything like that. I'd be more than happy to get to see you there. I'm super excited. I'll actually be running as the MC for the event. So you'll see me probably just dropping F-bombs on the mic and stuff. I know Sam's gonna be super upset about it, but whatever, that is what it is. He's just gonna have to deal with it. That's what, when you hire me as the lead DevRel, that's what you're gonna get, man. And but no, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have a ton of fun at the event, and super excited to get to see so many people, so many developer DAO members I haven't even met yet at Token 2049. Super excited to, take some selfies and stuff like that with those guys. And because I feel like I've known you all for 3 years, maybe 3 year plus. And I've never seen you guys in person. So it's going to be super exciting. But yeah, man, I feel like that's it. Do we got questions, comments, concerns, complaints, wine scrapes, crisis, anxiety, anything?
We have questions.
Yeah, go for it.
One question here from ZQ. Not a dumb question. Is AO ZK? Yeah, is AO ZK capable? Any project on that?
Yeah. So we got 2 or 3 projects on this. This is super cool. We have, man. Okay, who can I say? Okay, yeah. All right. So Pato Labs is a great project that is doing ZK on AO, and that's they've got some really cool stuff. And honestly, there's a line of projects that are just waiting for these 2 or 3 projects to finish their ZK tooling so they can start using the ZK features, which I believe some of them are right around the corner, almost done. So actually, as a matter of fact, it's beyond ZK. Pato is trying to implement ZK FHE. So fully homogeneous encryption and everything as well, including the zero knowledge. So not a dumb question. We got all kinds of cool stuff that is coming out inside of the AO ecosystem for that. So ZK is definitely a capability.
Awesome. And great question, CQ. Question from me. In regards to how the computation is performed on the network, obviously, some tasks are not as computationally intensive as others.
Hmm.
Specifically, if we're talking about like Llama 3, like you mentioned before, that is quite a computationally heavy thing to run with all the memory and hardware requirements.
Hmm.
What actually supports the underlying infrastructure that does the computation? Is it people providing their own hardware to do it, or are you guys utilizing another infrastructure layer to do that?
Okay, so this is a great question, and I'm gonna basically say that like it's to be determined in some cases because right now in testnet, obviously we're handling all the computation and everything, but when we go to mainnet, there are going to be, and I know Sam and a lot of the node developers and everything. They are actively. I think they even had a big meeting yesterday where they're actively working some of this out as to exactly how this will function and getting ready to test it and everything like that. Within the near future. So I don't have a great answer for you at this point. I do believe that there will be a an opportunity to make some of your own computation available. I do know that there will be some opportunities to be just basically a node provider or even like join basically kind of like a network of node providers. I know, kind of similar to like, the what's it called, like the staking pools, almost kind of the same functionality as that as well, but for computation, essentially. So you're kind of looking at this as like almost like a computation marketplace kind of idea. Nothing is genuinely set in stone just yet on that, but there are a lot of different people working on that part. So it's a really great question, though.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a very bleeding edge
Hmm.
sector of this cross between Web3 and like heavy AI required computation. But yeah, very
Hmm.
fascinating to see how things develop there.
Yeah.
We have a question here from Ethan. Um, how do Arweave and AO compete with other LLM blockchain ecosystems? What are the advantages?
Oh
I guess
yeah.
the question comes down to like why choose Arweave and AO over a competitor? What would compel a person to um, come come use this stack?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are a few options, and so like your immediate thought of like, okay, an L1, you're thinking like obviously like Ethereum, and but then you think of like Solana, and then you start kind of getting closer to things that like, what else do we do with decentralized computation? So you're thinking of like ICP, Filecoin, and things like that as well. Because I know Filecoin has like a virtual machine system as well, and so the biggest thing that I would recommend, number one is obviously the big difference is consensus and how consensus is run, the vertical scalability. Horizontal scalability. Horizontal scalability is a massive unlock for the parallel computation element. Barrier to entry. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know if you have ever gone through the various onboarding experiences for like different layer ones that might do some sort of like decentralized computation. But man, I mean, I can get through all of the tutorial basically or tutorials on the cookbook on AO in a matter of like a couple hours and start building right away. And I should have, if I spend an 8-hour day just hard coding stuff like that, I can have an application done in a day without having any knowledge of like what AO was in the beginning, which is really freaking cool. So barrier of entry is a big thing. Cost efficiency for storage and things like that. So like a lot of layer ones have both the computation side as well as the storage side. And I would say the cost efficiency, you have to look at this in a kind of a mathematical way. Is like, let's just exclude the R fleet side, that temporary storage element. We're excluding the temporary storage with R fleet, which by the way, we should have a live discussion about what R fleet is and everything, because we shelled it without giving too much information, but we're going to do a deep dive either Monday or Tuesday. Sam is going to go live with Sergey, the developer of R fleet, and then a few other people. And so, I don't even think we've even announced this event. So, sorry, David, if you're watching this, and I just totally blew the lid on this one. But
More
Monday,
alpha, more
Tuesday,
alpha.
more alpha, yeah. So, we should have an event very, very soon discussing the temporary storage side. But anyways, going back to the permanent storage side, people say, man, storing on Arweave is so expensive. Man, if you do the math of like because let's say Filecoin or anything like that, they do it like contract basis, and so it's a set amount of time. Okay, that set amount of time, that cost analysis, that set amount of time, or let's compare AWS or any of those things. Trying to map that out to a 200-year storage, dude, you're getting a fraction of price in comparison to anything else. So you have that use case of like, okay, permanent storage. That's what it's for. So like now that target market really shrinks down. It's like, well, why would I want that data to be available for 200 years? Well, okay, a lot of that data is very, very important depending on what what project you're building. Now you have that temporary storage side of our fleet. Well, I don't want to go too deep into exactly how that works, because obviously we're going to do a deep dive discussion on exactly how that is. But the cost efficiency of the temporary storage side, and the modularity capabilities and modular capabilities and everything with our fleet they're massive. It's going to blow everything out of the water as far as like how scalable and cost efficient data is going to be inside of our fleet. So, inside of Arweave ecosystem altogether. So yeah, as far as like choosing layer ones and everything, we're talking TPS, so super fast transactions inside of AO. We're talking temporary and permanent storage options. We're talking about you can officially have a fully decentralized application, from the static page to the domain to the middleware to the backend. Every single thing could be fully decentralized and cost efficient now, which is like what we weren't really able to do before AO. But now everything is very cost efficient. It's a no brainer at this point as to why you would choose our fleet or Arweave.
And on that, I guess I think we've reached a point in the Web3 ecosystem where we have enough infra and all the necessary boilerplate to be able to build really interesting things. So it's a very, very awesome time to be alive and to see all the innovation that kind of comes out after this point, which I'm really looking forward to see.
Absolutely.
And there's a tangent question here. I think you basically answered it as you were giving the answer to the previous question. Great question, by the way, Ethan. Is basically AO is being compared with ICP, and why is that?
Yeah, well, okay. So ICP, they came out as a layer one with the full intention of decentralized computation, and their underlying technology is honestly, I've spoken to some of their team members. I've spoken to some people building within the ecosystem, and we have people inside of the AO ecosystem that build in AO and ICP at the same time. Their technology is really freaking cool, and some really, really intelligent people building ICP. The biggest difference is I would say like there are two different tools, I would say very different approaches to solving similar problems. And so obviously, I do have to admit that if we were to say the immediate difference when you get into their documentation versus our documentation right away is barrier of entry. Like it takes you a little bit to really kind of get to understand what you're doing and how to do things inside of ICP. Biggest thing is the governance as well. They have a large governance system, and to be able to do anything in the governance or anything, I believe there's a series of like staking and things like that that's required. And so the governance model is really robust, and it takes a little while to kind of understand and get into. everything on AO is extremely light. We are very, very light in consensus. We're very, very light in the governance. The only real governance that we're going to have is through the gateway providers, which, if you want to dive into like how gateways and everything are run, highly recommend heading over to r.io, and you can get a full tutorial on how to spin up your own gateway and be a gateway provider yourself. But they are the only ones that really, if they can come to a consensus or a vote really as to, if something really egregious needs to be removed off the network, those are the people that can really kind of do that. But yeah, that's the only series of like governance I would really say. We really believe in permanence and permissionless. That's a big difference between like ICP and Arweave and AO. I would say ICP is very permissioned based, which obviously has its benefits in itself depending on what you're trying to build. And then Arweave and AO is very permissionless. It's very easy to get into, very easy to start building, very easy to start deploying things. So yeah, I think that's a major difference. Other than just the various languages and stuff like that that are required to build and do decentralized computation.
Awesome. Great answer and great question, ZQ. Unfortunately, that brings us to time. Actually, we've gone double time here on DevNTell and turned this into a special edition, which is really awesome.
I'm so sorry, guys.
No. It makes up for the time we had to wait.
True.
From the first time around. So I hope everybody enjoyed this impromptu special edition of DevNTell with Patrick and AO.
Yeah, it was great to see everybody. Great to answer questions and stuff like that. And if you have any more questions or anything, you want to really dive into it more, head over to the AO Discord. You can hit me up on X. My X account is pskinnertech. Pretty easy to find. And then obviously, if you're a Developer DAO member, you can find me there as well. So super excited to always be here now. DevNTell is a great show, and I'm just
Thanks,
lucky
man.
to have you, man. You are the most consistent person I think I've ever met in Web3. I could set a clock to the DevNTell show. So yeah.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it, and just trying to keep up with everyone else. But yeah, always a pleasure to have you on to speak with you, Patrick. You're always welcome to come back on. Tell us the latest and greatest of AO or anything else you've been cooking up behind the scenes. But yeah, man, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak to us today on AO. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And thanks, man. Take care, everybody.
All right, guys. Happy Friday, happy weekend, wherever you may be. And we'll catch you back here next week for another great DevNTell. All right, see ya.